really excited to be here today. Hello, hello. Am I audible? Yeah. Oh, hello, everyone. Hi. I'm Bukola Johnson, one of the organizers of Google Women Techmaker Berlin. Oh, okay. So I should use this so I can move around, right? Are we excited to be here today? I mean, I'm super excited. I'm thrilled to be here today. It's always amazing to see women, like the full house. So we are here to celebrate International Women's Day 2023. So it happened March 8th, but it's still okay to celebrate it today. And aside that, we are also celebrating the 9th year that Google Women Techmaker Berlin started. So I guess most of us already know what Google Women Techmaker is about. If you don't know, can I see your hand? Don't be shy. Anyone? Okay, anyone? Two? Anyone else? Google Women Techmaker. Okay, we have 2 people in the house. Does someone want to help me to maybe explain what Google Women Techmaker is about? Apart from the organizers, apart from the speakers, someone else in the room? Actually, it's on the slide, so you can just read out my slide. I'm going to give some. Thanks.
Google's Women Techmakers program provides visibility, community, and resources for women in technology.
Visibility, community, and resources for women in technology. I always like to say this story anytime I have the opportunity to speak with women in tech. When I started out in IT, like I graduated and then I started working in tech, I was always the only lady in the room. In meetings, in the office, I was always the only lady. And that was what motivated me to start out, like helping other women in tech, because I know it can be very overwhelming when you can't see a fellow woman that you can tell, oh, I have menstrual cramps, or I feel somehow today. It can be so overwhelming and so lonely. And that was why I started out supporting women in tech. So today is not about me. Today is about us celebrating ourselves. We have Google Women Techmaker in Berlin. We have some of our organizers are here today. And what we do basically is we help bring diversity happen. How do we do this? We have a lot of people that are trying to break into tech, a lot of ladies that are trying to break into tech. Maybe they are from different parts of the world, or they are from different career paths. Maybe they're once in HR, or maybe they're once in business side of IT, and they want to come into the tech side of IT. We help all of these people by bringing them together into our community. Our community belongs to everyone. Everyone is treated equal, regardless of your color, regardless of your race, regardless of your background. So you are always welcome. How did we start? Actually, we started here in Google Berlin office. A round of applause for Google. Google team. So we started 2015. And it happened here in Google office. I wasn't part of the team that time though, but we've come a long way. We have some of our organizers here present that I will be introducing to the team, because without the organizers, then there's no Google Women Techmaker Berlin. And the founder of the group is Natalie. She's not here. We have Anna. Anna is not here as well, but she was also part of the organizers behind the scene. We have Ruba. Ruba is here. She's at the back. We have myself. My name is Bukola Johnson, like I said before. And we have, thank you. And we have Nivita. Nivita is also here. So aside the organizers, we have the volunteers that worked behind the scenes so powerfully. Like, I was so impressed. The very first person is Simran. And Miss R is Nishta. I mean, this is the first event we are organizing with them together, and they practically did almost everything, like almost everything. The communication with the speakers, everything, all the branding and all of the information we needed. They're so amazing. Okay, so moving on about us. We have a Linktree page where, can I open link on this? I'm not sure, but I made a screenshot of it. So if you just click on this link, it shows you all our resources, all our websites, all our social media pages. So we have, if you want to submit a talk, like say you want to give a talk, we have some amazing speakers today giving talk. So if you want to just be like them sometime soon, you can click on the submit a talk. If you want to join us, we have a Slack page. You can click on the join Slack. We have a website that has all the information. Then we are on Twitter. Our handle is WTM_Berlin. Maybe you want to follow us right now, you want to tag us, or you want to say hello to us. We have a Facebook group. We have GitHub. Maybe you're a developer here, you want to collaborate with us. And yes, you can check all of this. If you want to access that, we have the link. The Linktree link is /WTM Berlin. So I'll pause for a minute. Maybe there's one or two people that want to check out that link. So you can see our information on the link. Okay. Yes, we'll put a slide on. Yeah, we'll share the slide. Sure. So we do some activities. We have a lot of activities, actually. Like I said initially at the beginning, that what we do is we help other women in tech to get visibility, to create awareness for all these women as well. Some of the events we do is the one we are having today, International Women's Day. We have the Fest that also happens once in a year. We have Google I/O Extended. We have public speaking training. So that's really important. Maybe you're a speaker or you are someone that wants to be speaking at an event, but you don't have the training yet. You can reach out to us. We have people that can train you to get started. We also help people find internship jobs, opportunities. If you join the Slack channel, you can ask people, you can collaborate with people and grow your network, because that's really important. And we have tickets for events. And we have Parents in Tech Conference. Do you know one of our speakers has a baby here with us? So that's pretty cool. So we have Parents in Tech Conference. Maybe you're a mother or you're a daddy and you feel you can't come because of your baby. That's a lie. You can be here. We'll support you. And we have, every month, we have a meetup event that happens in different locations. You can reach out to us or join the Slack channel to see all of this information. Yes, so like we're here today, we've had a lot of events, a couple of events since we started out. So I don't bore you with the details. I just put all of those there to let you see some of the cool events we've had that we've had in the community. So we've had this Parent in Tech Day. We've had so many events in the past. This was the one we had in September. We had the first. And today we are here to talk about Dare to Be. That's the theme for International Women's Day 2023. So what does it mean to dare to be? Like, what do you think it means when we say dare to be? What do you want to dare to be? Are people been telling you that you can't do this, you are not able to do this or that because you're a woman in tech? Do you have some male colleagues that feel that because you're a woman, you are incapable of doing what they are doing? Are you trying to dare that to prove a point? Are you trying to make things happen? Like, what do you want to dare to be? Do you want to be resilient? Do you want to be determined? Like, no matter what comes my way, I would make it. Like, I'm a woman in tech, but it doesn't matter because I'm a woman in tech. I'm in tech. That's what matters. Like, when people call me female DevOps engineer, I'm like, I'm not a female DevOps engineer. I'm just a DevOps engineer. Because you don't tell the male DevOps engineer, oh, you're a male DevOps engineer. So we are here to talk about dare to be. What do you want to dare to be? I've put some of the points there. I'm not going to read it all through to bore us, but I want us to take, if you're not taking anything I know you will take a lot out of here today, but if there's something you would like to take out, it is that one question you want to ask yourself. How do you want to dare to be? Like, what exactly are you going to do this year that would make a difference in your life and in your career? Moving on, our agenda for today, we have amazing speakers, like I said. We have Sarah Mystery. I hope I got that right. Mystery, okay. Talking about stress-free and fun approach to your next job search. We have PR that will talk about speak up, your voice matters. We have Doreen that will talk about green coding in the cloud. We have knowledge sharing session on salary negotiation by Francisca. You know, we need to know how to negotiate our salaries. We can't just be working and not be getting paid. And do you know that in some companies, the male counterparts get paid more than the female colleagues? So it's good we are here to discuss this. And then we have some discussions, Q&A sessions. Then we have Priscilla. Priscilla is my colleague at HelloFresh. She'll be talking about how she panic-proof guide to work probation. That is really nice. Then we have Soya, who will talk about, Soya is also my colleague in HelloFresh, talking about how to dip your toes into open source for coders and non-coders. Then finally, the most important part of the day, we would have networking and refreshments. Housekeeping rules. If you want to use the restroom, you have to go out and then down. Then you will see some security people that will guide you through all the way down there. And also we follow Berlin Code of Conduct. Please try and respect everyone sitting around you. Everyone in the hall today should be respected. We don't want anyone harassing anybody. We trust that no one is going to harass anybody anyways. We're just saying. Okay, thank you so much. I would be calling our first speaker. Yes, then I have this question. How will you dare to be? But I ran out of time, so I can't talk about it. Okay, a round of applause for Sarah Mystery. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to say a bit about Sarah. Pardon me. I was prepared actually, but I can't read all of this top of my head. I'm sorry. So Sarah is a data scientist, a career and interview coach, and founder of Thriving Career Moms. You see, she came prepared with her baby. Sarah is getting certified as a certified career coach with Classic Career Girl International. Wow. She's also a member of the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. She uses a proven process to help professional women who are 2 years plus post-graduation and women returning to work after maternity break find the right job for themselves. Whoa. So they can live life on their terms and be fulfilled. Sarah has 6 years plus experience in tech, working at international companies, financial companies, and startups. After her first years as a software engineer, she made the move to data science, where she has been working as a data scientist since 2018. Sarah's experience of getting through a career transition and a natural drive to support other young women in following their professional dreams inspired her to become a career coach. Sarah is a mother of 2 little boys under 4, and she's currently living in Berlin with her family. A round of applause for this awesome woman. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So, do you like swimming? Yes? No? No. So some say yes, some say no. For me, when I was a child, I didn't like swimming. I really was scared. And I was surprised at those people who really enjoyed going through the waves and even have fun at it. I mean, they waited for the waves to come so they can surf. You may wonder why I'm bringing this now here. So to me, our careers are like the sea. So there is a lot of opportunities. It's broad. It's a bit unclear in the beginning. And then also sometimes it goes well, sometimes there are some waves. And some people are scared and of drowning sometimes in that career. And some people have fun in going through the setbacks, the different stages, and so on. Now, in a perfect world, you don't have to feel limited in your potential or lost in your career, not being able to grow professionally. However, in the reality, many people are stuck, especially after the pandemic. There are studies that show there is one study in 2021 that shows 75% of people who were surveyed say they are stuck in their careers. Now, imagine when you think about looking at the next step in your career, you find the right opportunity on the corner without having to apply for hundreds and hundreds of jobs with your resume. So now that I went through what it could be, ideally, where I'm going with this. First, let's start with the challenges that I the people that I was supporting across my career, and recently the women who are trying to find their way. I hear a few sentences that are repeated. The first one is, I don't have time. I have too many things, and I'm not able really to focus on that next career step, or that's growing my skills, or looking for a new job. The second are, say, am I good enough? And this is like more about thinking that maybe you are not ready yet, maybe you don't have the skills yet, and there is more that you have to do before looking for the next step. And the third one is, I'm not getting results. So maybe you are already trying to reach for that career step, but not getting any results. You don't find that you are doubting if this opportunity of your dreams is actually there. Let's start with I don't have time. Do you know the story of the rocks, pebbles, and sands? Maybe anyone knows it here? Okay. So there is a known story, actually, that I came across by meditation, which is something that I practice. There is a professor who wanted to make a point to their students about how to make the most of our time. And so he entered this class, took a jar, and he had rocks, pebbles, and sand. He starts to fill the jar with rocks. Then, when he finishes refilling them, he asks them, "Is the jar full?" They say yes. He chokes a little bit the jar and then put the pebbles. And then asks the students, "Is the jar full?" Yes, the jar is full. But he then put the sand. And when he put the sand goes inside because he chokes a little bit the jar. And he asks them again, "Is the jar full?" And they say yes. What he says then is, I want you to understand, to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the things that are truly important to you, which, for example, could be your health, family, relationship. Then the pebbles are the other important things, which can be work, for example, or studies or something like this. Then the sand are the rest of the things that the small things, the material things that you can have in your life. If you fill the jar first with the sand, there will be no place anymore for the rocks. So, however, if you fill your life with the rocks first, you will always have a meaningful life. And this means it's important to prioritize and look at how are you filling your days. Is it with those rocks or more like with the small things first? And here, my invitation in this context is to look at your calendar. If you are working, I want you next, after this conference, to look at your calendar. How is it filled? By what? What are the activities that are there, or the work that you have to do there, meetings, tasks at your work? How is it spread on your calendar? And I challenge you to take control of your own calendar. You may say, it's not possible. I'm not the manager. I'm not the CEO. I'm just an employee. And my colleagues book my calendar. I have tasks that come my way and so on. Still, it's possible to take control. And this is something that I myself realized. So one thing you can do, assess how you are filling your calendar and take a look at what are the rocks in your life. If your career is really important, then you can find a way to block time for that job search or for that growing your career consistently. So the second thing is to do it a consistent way, regularly. For me, for example, after I took at my calendar, I created some time with no meetings, and then I also booked some time for my self-development in my work calendar, and then I communicated this to my manager and to my colleagues that I had projects with them. In this way, and of course, I expressed how this will bring benefit to our team, to my work. This way, it works. So next, if you are, when you think that you don't have the right skills now, or maybe not right now, I really hear it so many times. I talk with someone about their careers, and they say, "Nah, I don't like this. I like this. I don't know." But then when you get to the question, okay, why you are not doing it now or something, they say, I still want to do some other things. Maybe I have to improve myself in something, and I don't know. So it feels more like the lack of confidence for me. And actually, there is a research, a study that was done by Very Good Boss. It's I don't know. For me, I really know this one. In 2021, they surveyed women, and they found that 1 in 2 women are not very confident at their work. And when they try to understand, okay, what is the reason where they are not confident, they found that over 75% say they are not confident in their work relationship. They lack the supportive environment and growth opportunities. So if you are also one of the people I'm thinking that maybe I'm not having the skills yet and adapting yourself, you are not alone. So it's fine. Now, okay. Now, so this is like me. Do you think I'm confident here or not? How do I look? One person can maybe say in terms of confidence or okay. So here I was 6 months into my career change to data science after working as a software developer. I was looking for a job in Berlin while living in Tunisia. And also, I was looking for a job since 6 months. So it's not really a good situation. However, I still managed to stay, let's say, enthusiastic and confident. How did I do that? In the beginning, of course, I didn't start this way. I was struggling. I was really thinking, maybe I don't have to look for a job in data science. Maybe I should also look for a software engineer again, even though I don't want to go into that direction. What's helped me to stay in the zone of like being confident is that you see the circle. So here, like you, me, and what I worked on is my why I'm looking for a new job, why I'm looking for this next step. And then I worked on my beliefs, my interests, and one thing above is my strengths, especially. What are my strengths and what are my values? Once I look at this, so okay. Once I looked at this, I started to get better, let's say, opportunities, because I started to be consistent in the way I talk with people about what I'm looking for, what I can do for them, and I started to show up differently. So, and I focused on one thing, which is like the data science at that time. I'm not anymore looking for all the ways, everywhere. So there was one focus after working on this. And so this really increases the confidence when you dig deeper and know yourself, why you are doing this and so on. And it's not only that. There is actually a study by Gallup, which is like they have the Clifton Strength test or Strength Finder before. They did. They do a survey yearly. So this was a little bit old in 2020. But what they found is people who focus on their strengths are 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. So it's not only confidence that is better when you do all the work there. Also, they are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. Okay. Now, what about not getting the opportunities and the results? I want to look from first, because opportunity, where do come opportunity? They come from employers. Employers, what do they want? They want people who can clearly articulate their return on investment. So what does it mean? When someone hires you or thinks about hiring you, they want to know the results that you can bring to the company, how you can help them to solve their challenges. And this is like the start of to start like to have opportunities. You have to understand first what are the companies looking for. Now, now, how to make companies understand that you can bring those results. Here, if you take one thing maybe from the start, is like you cannot assume that people know. So if you worked on what I said, for example, knowing yourself, having the time, but you still didn't start creating your own voice and showing up to the potential employer, they will not know what you are capable of. So here, and what I mean here by this, I can explore it more in this thing, which is like, so there is you and there is others. And in our life, if we are, so the results that we are getting, they depend of the actions that we are taking. And one of those results is the people that we are attracting to our life. So, and the opportunity, because opportunities come from people as well. So, if we are not getting the opportunity, it means there are some actions that we are doing that are not attracting the right people, the right companies to us. Now, how can we start to attract that? The first thing is start creating intentional relationships. You can call it also networking, but I don't want to call it networking here. I want to call it intentional relationships. What are those intentional relationships? For example, once you know what you are looking for, or at like the next, you can even be not clear about the next career step, but you feel like you want to grow, you have the potential for more. You start with, for example, doing informational interviews with people who are like in positions that you are considering. So let's say for me, the data scientist, I want to become a technical lead in my team. For example, I'm interested in data strategy. So as you go into more like what you want, there is those people that you can ask, how is it to be there? What helped them? And you don't think of that as it's like not a good thing, because women want growth opportunities, but they don't really have networks as much as men. They don't like think it's important as the other as men. So here you start to leverage your network, and it's a win-win relationship actually. Because when you ask them, they can also later ask you. They can. So it's really a potential there. So here, let's look. So once also, the slides is not the last one. So also the other thing that you do is consistent steps. So once you have your nexus, so your calendar, you know your priority, you start working on things consistently. For example, for me, when I was looking for a job, so I started to work on a project in data science, and I started to blog about that, the challenges that I face. I had a website, and I started to share about that every 2 weeks. So I was consistent in that, because only consistency makes results at the end. If you are not consistent, it won't bring results. And then also the other thing is your support system. From those others, when you take the actions, you create your support system, which is mentors, people who are a step ahead in your in their careers, or also a coach, or simply connecting to people working in the field, joining sometimes an event, interacting with the target, the companies that you want to work for. Find people there that they can mentor you, that they can guide you in order to reach to that next career step. And when you do this, so this circle of intentional relationship, support system, and consistent steps, you start to get the right opportunities. So you don't need to be like, once you want to look for a job, you start applying online. No, you have this circle that can bring to you the opportunities. Now, okay, so it's your choice. So if you want to be having more fun in your career and like surf through the waves, you can start by taking action, which is, in summary, to commit, then to know yourself, now bring your value, which is, for example, working on a project, developing a certain skill and putting it online. or even at your work as well, internally. If you want to work an opportunity of growth internally, leverage that value that you bring. And then leveraging the human connection power, which is something that I truly believe in. I don't want you to let things happen to you. You can make things happen. And lastly, some action inspiration to what you can do is leveraging LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a really a good platform to, let's say, investigate what's like the companies that you want to work for, what's their value, what people do advocate for when they are in LinkedIn, and also start to talk about what you are pursuing. So what are the things that you are considering? And then there is also having your own project. And one thing that I want to mention before I end is, like, for example, collecting feedback from people you work with. This is internally to really have the opportunity to reflect on what are the things that you are good at and what are the things that you can improve. Don't wait until you go out from the company to ask them for feedback. Regularly, with people that you work do a project with, ask them for feedback. Tell them that this is important for me, for my career growth. I want to know. And have a goal, 3-6 months goal, in order that you communicate with your manager. That's that's all. Thank you for your attention, and feel free to connect with me. Thank you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.
Fine.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, actually, give a special round of applause for her, like managing a child. And then, and Sarah, we have a swag for you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the next speaker will be introduced by my fellow organizer, Ruba. And the Q&A session will be happening at the end. Since there is a lot of sessions, it's kind of like really time-packed. So we'll have a Q&A separately during the networking and at the end.
Yeah, hi, everyone. So first, short introduction for myself. So my name is Ruba Haroubi. I'm actually an organizer with Women Techmakers since a long time. So about 8 years, I guess, yeah. And actually, I worked as a software engineer since 2004. And now I'm just this year started with product management. I'm happy now to introduce our second speaker, Pia Borges. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So Pia is a software developer. Where is Pia? Yeah. So Pia is a software developer. She worked as in HR domain for 5 years. Then she switched to development. She was always helping all women to develop and collaborate to build a sustainable environment. And she's keeping working on that. And the last year, she started also like grouping some women from different backgrounds and to work together for learning and exchanging. And she's here to exchange and share her knowledge. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Excellent. Amazing. Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you very much, Sarah, for your talk. It was amazing. And I think we can all take pointers from it. So thank you for that. To start, if it's okay with you, I'm going to invite you to do a little exercise with me. Let's sit in put in a comfortable position, in an upright position. And whoever feels comfortable, let's close our eyes. Whoever doesn't, let's just keep it focused on one specific point. And we're going to take a breath and let it go in 4 times per second. And with each scale, we're going to let the day off go, all the stress of the week go. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Concept of peace. When do we feel peaceful? What makes us feel peaceful? And what makes us feel comfortable? Exactly is it that makes us feel in peace? Is it a place? Is it people? Is it a beach? Is it dogs or cats? What about comfort? To connect with these concepts that are coming to mind and slowly realize the respect that these evoke in yourselves, that these feelings evoke in one another, the people around you, that people are sharing with us this space today in this conference. And from here, I want you to reconnect with the place where we are and open your eyes slowly at your own pace. Welcome back. Thank you for doing this exercise with me. At least I needed it. I hope you needed it too. Today we're here basically to share a space of respect, communication. As I was well introduced, in the past years, I switched from HR into technology. And it was due to the fact that I saw the amazing things that can happen when people exchange in a communicative and respectful environment, that I decided to start grouping around women and getting feedback from their experiences. So the talk today, the things that I'm going to share with you today are not just out of my mind, but actually out of theirs, out of the professionals that I've encountered in my short period as a developer. And I would like to encourage the discussion, even inside of this room or outside, to create these synergies and continue creating these supportive and really nice connections. So with this respect and communication in mind, let's start. So you might remember the last time that you started a new job. You were new to the environment, you were about to start a new task, it was quite complicated, and then you're really happy about it, of course. Yeah, tomorrow's your first day. You're really excited about it, and you get prepared, but then the nerves come, and sometimes these nerves take over yourself, your mind. And you're just wondering, oh, am I really the best fit for this job? Or maybe there was somebody else that could have done it. Or what if they start getting to know me and they realize that somebody else could have actually done it better than me? Well, I guess most of you know this by now, but this syndrome or this situation has a name. It's called the imposter syndrome by some people. Even right now, I think you can see, I'm super nervous, and I feel like a complete imposter sharing all of these things with you, even though I know that they have helped people and I receive feedback that the information is really useful. So, of course, when I started getting together with these women that I was telling you about, that was one of the first topics that come to mind. And I started asking them about that. So I wanted to share these numbers with you. Some studies have revealed that 70% of people around the world have actually experienced this feeling of the imposter syndrome. And also, if you remember what Sarah just said, 75% people actually have doubts about how they do not have support and a growth environment in which they can actually do their best of their capacities. So having these numbers in mind, what I'm trying to say here is that this is something that affects most of us here at some point in life. Not necessarily every day, some of us have it more than others, but this is something that's a reality. I don't know if you've heard of this concept before. Have you heard of the words? Okay, good, nodding, that's good. I didn't have to explain them because I also have this really dictionary definition of the concept, but I think we can just let it go for now. So what I want to share with you is that when I start asking these friends and colleagues about the imposter syndrome, like how they face it, for instance, talking about interviews, or I don't know if they're going to pitch an idea to the group, or if they're going to start a new task that they have no clue about, they all came with different ideas, but like the common things and the common points that they were sharing with me and with all the people that were in the group were these. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is exactly the same. Remember the data. You might feel that you're the only one experiencing these insecurities about the new task that you're about to overtake. But we just said 70% of the world's population experience it. That's like, at least for me, okay, comforting. Like, I know that I'm here super nervous thinking that I do not have enough things to share with you, but 70% of the people would actually experience the same thing, being here, nervous, shaking. So yeah, there's that. At least for me, it's comforting. The second thing is about the attitude, actually. When I say about be ready to walk the walk, what I'm referring to is basically that, okay, of course, there might be a gap between the expectations for the job, what you have to do, and what you know. But that doesn't mean that you're not qualified. If you have the right mindset, you might be actually most likely able to do it. So have that mindset of, okay, is this something that is, I don't know, an absolutely thing that nobody can understand? No, people do this, so that means that probably I can also learn to do it. Try to remember that, have to have that energy, believe it, and be ready to walk the walk, basically. Be ready to get there, to prepare, to take the steps, and get there. Yeah, simple or difficult as that. Also remember that whenever you're joining a team, whenever you're assigned a task, you're most likely to be working with people, right? Either in your immediate team, or perhaps like you're alone in the team, but then you have more people that you can create synergies with. So remember that, like whenever you join a team, even if you're like the person, perhaps the most junior, for instance, right now I'm the most junior in my team, and sometimes I have this feeling like, oof, perhaps like I should not speak up in this meeting, perhaps I should just like listen to them and see what they're going to share with me. I try to remember, okay, maybe I cannot say much about the very specific technical stuff, but maybe, I don't know, I have a fresh set of eyes, and I look at the code and say like, you can clearly see that this is inheritance from another language, and in this language that we're working on, this doesn't really make sense. We should actually look for a better solution. So try to remember that. Teams are meant to work together and to listen to each other, regardless of the seniority, background, and whatsoever. I would also like, so this last part is one of the last things that I included because I had completely forgotten about that. And today I was actually talking to one of the speakers of one of the talks that we organized with the group that I was telling you about. And they were telling me like, yeah, one of the things that's most important, at least for me, for them, is that whenever you're about to start a new task, try to remember how that task relates to something that you've done before. It can be specifically, for instance, I come from HR into coding. Maybe coding per se has nothing to do with HR, but it does have to do in terms of how you deal with the team, how you deal with frustration, and maybe more soft skills that I can actually bring into my day-to-day job. So, okay, with these similarities, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be senior at coding. I mean, I'm not a senior developer just because I have the right mindset. But for sure, I can be ready again to walk the walk, point number 2. So yeah, these are some of the things that they were coming up with, and hope they work for you. And again, I just said, like, these are just tips that are helpful for me and helpful for the colleagues that I've talked with. And I really hope that some of them are also interesting for you. Okay, so the second part that I wanted to talk about was how to raise our voices when we're, for instance, pitching ideas or in meetings where we want to propose something new and we might be a little bit shy or insecure about how to do that. So again, this is not set in stone. This is not a magical formula. It's not like if you do the steps, you're going to be perfect. But at least it's going to help you be in a better mental state to probably focus on what's coming next. So first of all, the most important thing that I always repeat to everyone is to prepare yourself. Gather your data, gather your examples. Make sure that whatever you're going to communicate is well prepared, well based, and that you know what you're talking about. In the same sense, it's very important to know your audience. Meaning, right now I know that I'm talking to all of you who are, most of you related to technology jobs. So I know that if I start putting examples about, I don't know, JavaScript, most of you will understand. Or if I start talking about agile methodologies, you probably will understand. But I cannot go there, I don't know, to English school and start talking about the same without knowing what background people have, right? Because they will probably say like, Agile what? Please repeat again. So yeah, I'm just putting this example, which was in the top of my mind, to say basically that the more that we can actually consider our audience, we can actually make more specific examples about what we're talking about, and therefore our ideas can have a better impact. Try to establish connections. Okay, so this is like perhaps a silly example, but you know how before I was just telling like, yeah, I'm a bit nervous and so on. I've heard many times that those kind of things help you like create empathy with the public. I don't know if it's working, but at least it made me feel a bit more relaxed. So at least on my side, I have the feeling that it is. So yeah, try to also find, in that sense, try to find the common ground with the people that you're talking with. Not all the times you're going to have nice people in front of you, but for sure, if you're part of the same company or part of the same team, or you're humans, you must have something in common. So try to make the effort and find and identify those points in common that you have, so that at least from a common ground, you can continue building up, even if you have your differences. And super important in any talk, any pitch, anything that you're going to face, have like a clear goal or have a clear mindset of what you want to achieve. If I come here with the same topic, pitching your ideas, and I'm like, yeah, so think about something and tell it to people. They're probably going to buy it. Yes, that's going to be perfect. Yeah. I have no clue what I'm trying to say, so probably the message is going to be a bit like superficial, and perhaps they're not going to understand or engage with what I'm saying. So yeah, have a clear goal and keep in mind what you want people to have after the meeting or after your pitch or after what you're sharing. I want them to have clear ABC. Perfect. So I cannot leave that room, that meeting, or the opportunity without sharing specifically that. Okay, so this is one of the things that for me it's I get really passionate about, because when I say non-collaborative people, I'm thinking about people that are not willing to listen, not willing to share with you, or even people that have like prejudices against one another because of sex, because of gender, because of race, because of whatever background, whatever reason there might be. So we all have experienced this. Like I think everyone in the world has. Of course, depends on who you are to a certain extent to one another. And again, there's no magical formula, but for sure, these pointers have helped me, and I hope they help you as well. Let's go for them. So the first thing I'd like to suggest, again, after talking to my former colleagues and so on, is identify who these difficult people are and what role they have in the conversation. Because sometimes what we do is we go to a meeting or we go, yeah, we're working with people, and there's somebody that, for instance, is a bit more difficult. Sometimes we tend to focus way too much on the people that are negative, whereas we have perhaps a super supportive environment of people that are thriving and listening to us and sharing with us, and we're just focusing on, oof, but this person doesn't like me. Sure, no, they don't like me, probably I'm the worst, probably I'm just doing a really bad job, and maybe it's just a matter of not finding a common ground, as we said before. That was very important. So try to find that, like, okay, this person is perhaps the most difficult one or the one that I do not connect with, but that doesn't mean that my ideas are not going to be heard. Or yes, it does, because I'm not reaching them. In that case, then you can look for support in different ways. Something super, super important is to be able also to give feedback, which is not always easy, I guess. We all know about that. Sometimes we have like a good opportunity. For instance, I'm trying to think right now of an example in my previous company. I have this person that constantly interrupted me, but we were really engaged, like in outside of the meeting areas. We were like really good friends, you could say. But they interrupted me because it was part of their, I'm going to say, education, that perhaps their ideas might be a bit stronger and therefore they should raise their voice a little bit more. But again, outside of the workplace, we were having like a good discussion. So from time to time, when this happened, like, okay, I would write it down and then talk to them and say, like, hey, you know what? The other day, this happened during a meeting. And I didn't really like that much. Like sometimes I feel like I cannot express myself correctly or fully because you have a lot to say, which I think it's really important, of course, but I would like to ask you to like keep in consideration that sometimes this happens. And yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have like a really good feedback from them saying, okay, thank you very much for sharing this. You're really right. Like I've received this feedback so many times, so I'm really going to make an effort. Time over time, it kind of like it started improving. Of course, I was always giving feedback and they were always giving me feedback as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to share here that even though giving feedback might be difficult, it gives its results to an extent. We cannot expect people to just flip absolutely personalities, but for sure it helps. And I written here the situation, behavior, impact, because it's a methodology that many people recommend. And if you Google it, you will see that there are like tons of results for it, different books and so on of people going on about it. And the thing is that if I just come here and tell you, hey, I don't like you because you have really weird tones towards me, you'll be like, thank you, amazing. But if I go, hey, you know what? The other day we were talking about this specific topic in this scenario, and you used this tone on me, which made me think that perhaps you were actually not understanding what I was saying. And that made me feel bad because you didn't have the open communication to just tell me, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. And this impacted me in the way that blah, blah, blah. So if you go on specific situation, what behavior actually caused the reaction? And what impact it had in ourselves, in the team, or whatsoever, then it's easier for the person to think. On one hand, okay, it's not about me, it's about the action. It's about how I behave, which already makes them more open to the feedback that you're sharing. And on the other hand, okay, I can actually take actions. I can actually do something about it. Again, it's not just like, I don't like your tone. No, it's this day, in this specific situation, you were doing this, and that confused me, or that had this impact. So then again, the person next time can be more aware of it and can hopefully find a better way to express themselves or whatever the situation was. And something else that I want to say, and for me at least is the most important, is the whole reason why I'm here today. It's to look for support and to offer support as well. So sometimes it might happen that we're in an environment with lack of communication and respect, in which we cannot really give our feedback directly to the person. Sometimes we have to go to the managers, and sometimes it happened to me once that not even the managers were open to feedback. So I then looked for my colleagues' support, and I was lucky enough to find them. I remember, for instance, that I had been talking about how I believe that sexism affected my team once. In a specific moment, I remember I was talking about some tasks that I had done, and I was explaining it and so on. And like my senior interrupted me and started talking about the thing that I had done. I was like, one of my colleagues saw how I was like, ooh, during the meeting. And they texted me, hey, are you okay? And I said, yeah, it's just a little bit frustrating that I'm already explaining what I did. And they just interrupted me and I cannot continue with my idea, or I cannot continue it. So what he did was basically, okay, don't worry, like we can talk about this. I'm pretty sure that he will be open for this, like if you tell him how you felt. But then at the same time, in the meeting, he said like, hey, Pia, so what do you think about that? Like what he's sharing? Can you actually tell us more about your opinion? So this moment for me was like, okay, I'm back in the game. And I started sharing again, and it actually motivated me. So what I'm trying to say here is like, you all know that whenever you're alone in a situation and somebody comes and say like, hey, I'm with you, you get empowered. So let's be also that empowering person that looks in the situation and says like, okay, I can actually do something about this. Okay, I want to continue in this line, and I'm going to share with you a few examples that I think I was talking today with a colleague. Sometimes we are witnessing these situations and we just get petrified because we cannot believe that certain situations occur around us. Like we see them in the movies, see them in the behavioral training on whatever those are called, like codes of conduct, and like the beginning of whenever we join a company or whatsoever. And but then we see them in the real life and we're like, what do we do? What can I do? So I'm just going to share a few pointers that have helped me and that I've actually been able to use. And it would be amazing is also if you have any experiences that we can share and we can continue creating this knowledge so that, again, we can help each other out. So it's very important that we have zero tolerance towards disrespectful conducts. If we hear, for instance, a comment that is out of line, we can always say like, hey, this is a bit much, don't you think? We can always say as well, like, let's keep it professional. Or if you have a good relationship or a good rapport with the other person, you can say like, that's a bit harsh, right? And perhaps that helps, like, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. I didn't notice what I said. Sorry, yeah, I'll take it back. And what I was saying before, like hey, sorry, Alex, you were saying, hey, I didn't quite, you didn't quite finish your third of thought. What's your opinion on the matter of what we were talking about? So like, bring the ball back to the person who was interrupted if we're talking about interruptions. It's very important to reach out to one another. I remember once I heard this thing, like this phrase that says, if you're wondering if you're the only one, you're probably not the only one. So if you're feeling like you're in a team where you cannot communicate your ideas, you do not feel respected or whatsoever, I'm pretty sure that if you take the step and reach out to somebody, whoever you think is you feel comfortable doing so, you will find someone in the same situation, or at least that understands it. And therefore, you can again come back to a more comfortable situation in which you can start sharing and continue building. So yeah, these are just some of the ideas that I've had. Sometimes just like being there with, like, if you see an awkward situation and you just approach them and like divert with a joke, dilute it with a silly comment or with something important, or change the topic or whatsoever, can already be a lot of support. I believe that sadly most of us, or many of us, have been there. So always like a friendly face, friendly smile helps out to come out of the situation. And of course, giving the feedback is very important, either to the direct person or to the manager. And again, situation, behavior, and impact are very important so that then later we can learn from what is happening. So I'm pretty sure that my time's up, so that's good because it is one of the last slides. In summary, what I'm trying to say with this whole talk is that we should speak up. We have this potential and power inside of ourselves that we need to unlock. We need to reach out to it. I hope that these tools are going to help you or help somebody else come out of their shell if they are in one, or continue growing in terms of expressing themselves and create awareness towards what we are experiencing, either the lack of communication or maybe disrespectful situations, which I hope is not a reality for anybody in this room. And let's support each other. That's basically like the biggest thing that we can do. We're very powerful, and if we join our forces, we're for sure going to unlock our full potential. And that's why we're here today. We want to create these synergies, to continue feeding them, and rock the world. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. So again, just like Sarah said, if you want to connect, that would be amazing. So we can continue create these talks, and I would love to hear from you and your opinions on the matters.
Everybody can see. Thank you, Pia. It was a really nice talk. And yes, I can see faces that most of them are not sleeping and look quite motivated and inspired by this talk. So thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you, Bukola, who's already introduced me as a volunteer here. So I'm Simran, and I work for a startup in Rostock. And yes, I just wanted to talk about this event or Women Tech Makers we have is to create or inspire and motivate women across the world. So please take a lot of pictures and create a noise on social media so a lot of women feel more inspired and our community keeps growing. So we're going to introduce our next speaker. Yeah. Okay, so we have Doreen. Yes, she is. Oh, She's a data scientist from Berlin and passionate advocate for green coding in cloud, and a co-host of the Women Tech podcast, Unmute IT. I think you have already seen the stickers on the career corners we had. So she's here to talk about how developers have a control on the code and can focus on minimizing the energy consumption of software to limit environmental impact. Doreen is passionate about empowering underrepresented groups to shape the algorithms and data that impact our world. And on a personal note, she's always on the lookout for the best coffee shop in town and fueled by a great passion for coffee. So please welcome Doreen Sacker. That's right? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Does work? Yes. Okay. So, green coding in the cloud. And I have an intro slide, but thank you for the really nice introduction. And thank you for the talks already. And thank you, Pia. That helped my nervousness also quite a lot. So thanks a lot. All right. Let's start with what is green coding. It's not having a plant next to your laptop, as you can maybe assume. So green coding, or in this case, also what we're going to talk about in the more cloud context, minimizes the energy consumption of software in the cloud to limit the potential environmental impact. Why is that important? So yesterday, I don't know if you know, the IPCC, the International Global Health, not Global Health, Global Climate, I don't know the full title, I wrote it down, I don't know, published a report on how much our planet is in distress. And we're now at 1.1 heated up, like degrees of heated up our planet. And we have quite a lot of carbon in our atmosphere. So we need to do something about it. And we as developers can do something about it. And I want to present to you the principles of green software engineering. They're not from me, I didn't write them down. They're from Asim Hussain. And he's a green cloud advocacy at Microsoft. And he put a lot of effort into writing them down. So I'm just going to present them here, kind of. And the principle one is carbon, because carbon is the most important. We must build applications that are carbon efficient, because there is too much carbon in the atmosphere. And I don't know if you know this, but the temperature, the Earth's temperature, depends on how much carbon there is in the atmosphere and not the rate at which we're emitting it. So it doesn't help if we kind of slow it down. We need to stop putting so much carbon into the atmosphere, because otherwise it's going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And currently, we're not on a very good path. That's also from the report of yesterday. I can highly encourage you to read it. It's not so fun. And so what can we do? We very soon, rather very sooner than very later, need to achieve net zero emissions. What does net zero mean? For every gram of carbon that we emit into the atmosphere, we need to extract it as well. And that obviously is a lot easier if we stop adding so much carbon, or at least minimize how much carbon we put there into the atmosphere. So all of the other principles I'm going to talk to you about are a bit how we can minimize or stop putting so much carbon there. Principle two is closely related. So we want and have to build applications that are energy efficient. Maybe why? That's not clear. If you create a website, you can put it into websitecarbon.com, and you can see how much carbon is emitted when a user visits the website. I think that's very interesting. And there are lots of websites like this. But why is that important? Because most of the electricity still produced emits carbon into the atmosphere, because it's produced by burning fossil fuels, by burning gas, by burning oil, by burning coal. And you also, there are also renewable energy sources, but most of it isn't. So if we use electricity, we need to be kind of careful how much of it we use, actually. So what can we do? We can build more lightweight applications. That will not just help the planet, it will also help your software because it will get more performant and more faster. You can use smaller image sizes, for example. And you know how apps have more and more really fancy animations? Sites have like really fancy animations, like lots of videos running, etc. The question is, do you really need all of that? Or can it just be a bit less heavy? Can it be a bit more efficient? Can it be more performant? And can it be better for the planet? And the second thing is, so the code said green coding in the cloud. Cloud computing already has a lot of the things that you need. So if you build cloud native applications, there will already be cost efficient and resource efficient and hopefully energy efficient somehow. Because if you build cloud native applications, and especially if you build serverless architectures that can scale up and down, then they're more efficient because they only use what you need. So if you have auto-scaling, for example, you only will have the instances that you need for the current requests that are coming in and not just like very over-provision it. And the plus side is you have to pay for it. So it's cheaper if you're kind of using more ones. Principle 3. And that is a really interesting one in my opinion. It's carbon intensity. So it's about how much carbon emissions are produced per kilowatt hour of electricity consumed. The main point of this is that renewable and kind of what we consider clean energy sources emit a lot less carbon into the atmosphere than burning fossil fuels does. If you run in the cloud, and if you, I don't know how many of you use GCP, you can check the carbon-free percentage per region, because not every region will have the same mixture of energy. Some regions have more fossil fuel energy, and some have less, and some have more renewable energy sources. And you can, so on GCP, they have a very nice green leaf. It looks very nice. But you can also check the carbon-free percentages. And then maybe use the ones that are a bit more carbon-friendly than the other ones. And the second thing, so you can shift your workloads around, but you can also shift them around in time. If there's more wind, we can produce more renewable energy. But there's not always wind, right? But if there's a lot of wind and we don't need all of that electricity, it will be thrown away because we can't really store it that well. So, for example, the company 1,5 Grad, they're trying to develop a product where you can charge a heater when there's more renewable energy in the market, rather than just charging it when you want to. And maybe we should all do that a bit more. So I'm a data scientist. Can I also train my machine learning model when there's more wind or when there's a lot of sun, rather than when I have to burn a lot of coal for it? Because if it's done 1 hour earlier than the other, it's not really that important. Principle 4 is embodied carbon. And that's also one of the reasons why wind and solar is not completely carbon-free, because embodied carbon is the carbon that is released when devices are created. So if you create a laptop, and if you build a laptop, some kind of electricity and some kind of carbon is needed for it. So basically, don't waste hardware if you don't have to. We've probably all experienced this. You have a phone, and then 2 years later, you can't really use it anymore because it can't run the newest apps anymore. You don't have any updates, and it's just full of everything. But it used to run fine 2 years ago. So the problem is not the hardware. The problem is that our software and our apps push the limits of the new hardware. And the old hardware just can't keep up anymore. But does that have to be the way? So before, like in the old times, everybody had to be like better with all the performances and the resources because we didn't have so many, right? But we can optimize again. Just because we have good hardware doesn't mean we have to have fancy animations all the time. So if you can, try to extend the expiration date of hardware. Try to support older versions. I know it's a trade-off, like you can't develop for every explorer out there, but you can try. And the second thing is, you don't always need new hardware. You can maybe buy refurbished hardware, like especially as a company, like you don't need the newest MacBook, you can just buy maybe refurbished hardware. That might work too, also for personal, for company, and then you don't have to waste so much hardware and so much embodied carbon, for that matter. Energy proportionality. So what's also important is to maximize the energy efficiency of the hardware that's there. It comes down to the utilization of hardware. I put Google here because we're here, but that is for all the cloud providers, actually. So their data centers run a lot more efficiently than you could run your data center, no matter how big your company is. Not no matter, but most companies. Because they put so much effort into optimizing their data centers. So they have machine learning models to optimize the cooling, but also they have to pay for the electricity, right? So Google and Microsoft, etc., they put a lot of effort in it. So running in the cloud will always be more efficient. And also on the plus side, if you can run stuff, or if you run workloads on 2 servers that you can run on 1, that will use less energy, and therefore it will use less carbon. So if you can run on less servers, which in the cloud is possible because workloads are shifted around, and like maybe your workloads run there and also like 100 others, that works well. So if you have your own servers, run on as little servers as possible, but also in the cloud. But that's kind of a given there. And the next thing is, run on smaller virtual machines if you don't need so many, right? Because in the cloud, it will also cost. It will also cost in general, so cheaper. But you probably don't need all of that space. Or just be more mindful, that's what I'm saying. And the next thing is turn the lights off if you leave the room. If you don't need your instance anymore, scale it down. And then, I mean, auto-scaling already does that out of the box, which is also nice in cloud environments. But in general, auto-scaling is a really good idea. We, for example, had, when we migrated to serverless, before we had 8 instances running. And after that, we only had like 1 to 2 running on average. Because for most of the day, we don't really need that many instances, right? And then that helped a lot with costs, first of all. And it helped a lot with not having so many instances. Principle 6 is networking. So we want to reduce the amount of data and the distance the data must travel across the network. Why? Because if you send things across the network, you send it through devices. And every device consumes some kind of electricity. So if you want to, don't use so much electricity, don't use so much carbon, don't send so much around, and don't send it so far. So reduce the traffic per operation and the distance. How can you do that? The first thing is you can use caching headers. You can use caching in general, actually. So us, by optimizing the caching, we optimized the performance quite a bit. And we also got the performance. So we got our recommendations from like 20 seconds to 1 second, for example, just by not sending so much around. And then a CDN is kind of a cache. So a CDN is a content delivery network. I don't know if, who knows what that is. It's basically getting the assets that you have on a web page closer to where the request is. So when you stream a video, that the video is already closer to the location of the user, which is nice. Then you don't have to send it so far, and it's faster there too. The next thing is, if you can maybe reduce the resolution of the images and send them less frequently if you cache them, for example. And I also found this an interesting fact. If you compress your data before you transmit it, then it will use less energy than if you send uncompressed data around. And because I'm a data person, you can use simpler file formats that use less storage. So upper uses less than JSON, CSV uses less than Excel. If you store data, Parquet, for example, uses a lot less space than CSV, stuff like that. So you can be smarter with that as well. Demand shaping. Build carbon-aware applications. So you want to shape your demand so it matches the existing supply. So far, it kind of means we have to reduce the consumption because we need to get it down somewhere. We had demand shifting as well before. We said, okay, we can shift workloads around to different times when we have more renewable energies, but you can also shape your demand to only use the renewable energy that you have and also use less maybe. So for video calls, for example, if that is also already happening when you have less bandwidth, for example, that the audio is prioritized over the video. So because in a call, normally the audio is somehow more important than a video. So that already happens. But we could also do that with the energy consumption, right? And the same for streaming. So smaller video and music files, most of the time you probably wouldn't even recognize. And also because I'm a data person, that is what I want to stress the most. You can probably reduce the amount of logs, events, and data that you have. And you can also probably delete all data. There's a really nice blog post. I don't know if you've seen this. It's called Big Data is Dead. There's also a post against it, but it's from one of the founding engineers of BigQuery. And he basically says, most companies don't need the data that they're storing. Like also my company. So we integrate polls and news articles, and whenever you scroll up and down, an event will be sent. But we've never done anything with this. It just creates a lot of data. So we decided to get rid of it because you don't really need all of that data, and you don't really have to store everything because in some future use case, you might be able to use it, probably not. So big data is dead, maybe. And this is the last principle. And it's always a good idea to measure and then optimize. Because as we all know, we can't really optimize when we can't measure. And then the important thing is focus on a step-by-step optimization to increase the overall carbon efficiency. So it is tiny, tiny steps. It's not the huge thing. All of us can do small things to improve on a global scale. However, measuring is a bit difficult. How I said, so in different times, in different regions, the carbon intensity is different. So if I run an application, how do I know? There are proxies for it. And like there are also, I mean, a lot of companies now that will calculate this for it, but a lot of it is just an estimation. So getting the actual number is super complicated and hard and sometimes impossible. Now, green coding in the cloud, you can have proxies. A lot of them we already talked about. If you can get the costs down, especially in the cloud, that will be more energy efficient because the energy you need will be factored into the cloud costs already. And the same is for networking. So if you can improve what you send around, and if you improve the performance, that will probably help with the energy efficiency. The 8 principles, I can highly recommend going to principles.green and read more about this. You may ask why, hopefully not. It's now or never. Either we do this now, or it's going to be really uncomfortable in very large parts of the world. I also have more points. So your users and your employees want sustainability. Like it's the newest and biggest buzzword of all of them, of these times. You will save costs, you will be faster, and you have to. I found this an interesting fun fact. The directors of Shell are being personally, as like persons, sued over their flawed climate strategy. So you actually have to by law. These are other good resources that I like. Greencoding.berlin, they're really, really cool. The Green Software Foundation. If you're interested in open source, you can easily find on GitHub. They support sustainability, and also the Green Software Foundation has many projects linked there. And you can join the Climate Action Tech Slack community. And if you have any questions, we have a Q&A after, I heard, and you can follow or connect to me on LinkedIn. And I co-host a podcast where we talk about this stuff as well. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much for that information. Yeah, from Women Techmakers Berlin, say thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we are supposed to have gone on break for 5 minutes before this talk, but we didn't go on break, and we understand that you might be feeling tired, or maybe you want to use the restroom, or maybe you want to take water or drink. So we have 5 minutes from now to take a break. But before then, our speakers are on Twitter, they're on LinkedIn. If you could take a picture, of their presentation and please tag them, they would really appreciate that, because we are not paying the speakers. This is a voluntary work, and that's the only way we can pay back. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 5 minutes when we would have, in 5 minutes we would have the talk on salary negotiation by Francisca. Thank you.
And the restroom is just that way downstairs. Yeah, just for all of us not to be lost completely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was everyone. Yeah. Thank you. I totally forgot that. Enjoying it.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Sorry, I off it.
Audible now?
I off it. I think I off it.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
Hello, everyone. Can we have your attention, please? Hello.
Your voice is not thick enough.
Can I have your attention, please? Thank you.
Hello, hello. This one is louder.
I request you to get back to your seat. Get your seatbelts on. Again, for the topics. I hope you are enjoying so far. Am I clearly audible to everyone? Yeah? Closer? Now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your patience for so long. And I would like to welcome our next speaker, Franziska Blaszka. Please give her a round of applause to her. I would like to introduce a little bit about her. Franziska is experienced in consulting strategic people process and optimizing workflows. She currently works as a people business partner, consulting the product and tech leadership at Idealo Internet. She has lived in 5 countries so far. So during networking, don't forget to check on her and ask if you belong to one of those countries. She loves learning about different work cultures and is passionate about inclusive work environments. Today, she will be sharing her insights on very warm topic, salary negotiations. So please join me in welcoming Franziska. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, awesome. Thanks for the thumbs up. Very enthusiastic. So yeah, salary negotiations. I'm just going to go ahead and start. I go by Franzi, so it's my full name Franziska, but this is what my mom calls me when she's angry. So let's stick with Franzi, pronouns she, her. And I wanted to quickly introduce what I actually do as a people business partner, because I know most of you maybe aren't super familiar with this role. So I basically consult the senior leadership at the company that I work for in every topic that has anything to do with people or HR related issues or topics. And one of them is also salaries, obviously. But that's actually not why I wanted to talk about this today. I wanted to talk about salary negotiations and salaries in general, because I'm super passionate about this conversation and this topic. And the idea of talking here actually came up a few months ago, I think in October, at also a Women Techmakers event, where we had the super interesting conversations and discussions by very smart people. And afterwards, the Q&A session and the discussion round were actually had nothing to do, or no questions were asked towards the topics. The only conversation topic that came up were salary negotiations, and how specifically women of color, had experienced salary negotiations that didn't go in their favor, or was just really visible and clear that this was a topic everyone had on top of their heads and was eager to talk about. So I thought, well, other people are also so passionate about this. I want to improve my public speaking skills, so let's bring this together and talk about salary negotiations. So that's actually why I'm here. Someone shared with me that you should, if you have a public speaking engagement or talk in public, you should try to share a personal anecdote. Duh. This is what I'm going to do. I can say that I'm very passionate about this, but I want to tell you, give an example. As we may connect later on and have a conversation, or as people who know me better, very quickly, if you start a conversation with me, the topic of salary negotiations will come up naturally, but I'm just really passionate about it. And in January this year, I was on a winter sport trip with some friends. We were with 5. And as you prepare dinner in the evening after skiing and snowboarding all day, cut your zucchinis and stuff, and naturally, salary negotiations come up, super naturally. And we actually had one friend in the group. Her name is Jen. And she's a pretty junior in her career. She doesn't make a lot of money. She's kind of happy with her job, but still feels underpaid. And I get all like, oh my God, let's talk. It's not just me, it's also 3 other people that are like, okay, so Jen, let's talk. What's your strategy? What's your goal? How can we get you there to get that raise? And so we bamboozled her with all of our ideas, unsolicited advice also, not gonna lie, but really strongly nudged her. This was evening 2, so we had like 4 or 5 more nights and days together to motivate her. So a few weeks when we're back from our trip, she shoots us a message in our group chat saying, oh, so I set up a meeting with my manager, and she's gonna have the conversation with them, with their manager. And then 3 weeks ago, 7th of March, it's a pretty impressive day, she sends us this message. So, whoop, it took a while, but she got her increase directly, so per direct. Her inflation is corrected, and in December, she's gonna have another salary negotiation. Yes, indeed, yes. Yes, and she says, thank you guys for pushing me. I feel 90% of the credit goes to me, but it's fine. I don't want to single out, but it's fine. It was a group effort, but I say take most of the credit. Yeah, so that's my personal anecdote, why I want to talk about salary negotiations today. Right, so before we continue and get into the nitty gritty, I wanted to do some expectation management and expectation setting, which I think is really important. And click one slide ahead. So what can you expect from today, and what can you not expect from the next 10 to 12 minutes? You will not hear any tips, tricks, strategies on actual negotiations. I'm sorry, but there's so much information out there. You just need to Google salary or Ecosia, whatever your preferred browser is. Google, and you'll find a ton of information. And I think you don't need my support in finding that. I want to start one step earlier and motivate you to actually type in those words into Google. I want to ignite that spark that makes you so passionate about salary negotiations that also makes me so passionate about it. Ideally, you'll be all sitting at the edge of your seat later on, super passionate with like dollar signs in your eyes. When you ride on your bike home later in the U-Bahn, you text your friend, oh my God, so when are we doing this? When are we talking about money? So this is my goal, not to talk about tricks or strategies. You can do this by yourself, but to start one step earlier and motivate you to talk about this. So that is the expectations, what you can expect for the next 10 to 12 minutes. All right, so let's look at a timeline of a typical salary negotiation. We have the excitement phase. You get the dollar signs in your eyes, hopefully tonight or tomorrow, we'll see, whenever your time comes. And you do a ton of research. You type in salary negotiations in your browser. You look on Glassdoor and every other site that you can find. What is my market value? And what is the strategy I want to follow? What is the number I'm looking for, etc. So you do really, you spend all of your time looking into your numbers and doing the research. This is an exciting phase because it motivates you. You want to get more money. In this moment, we celebrate capitalism because we want more money, right? And then comes the phase of practicing. Practicing with a trusted colleague or a friend, if you have a supportive friend group who you can talk to, and just practice the hell out of it. What's your strategy? What's your connection with your manager? How can you find a way to get your number that works for you in your setting? Then comes the hardest part with the little melting face, because this is like the feeling you have when you have to set the meeting with your manager. I think this is the hardest part because this is where all the imposter syndrome kicks in. This is where you think, oh my God, do I even dare ask for something? I should be so lucky to even have a job in this economy. This is where all the waiting comes, and you just have to sit there. And then the easiest or maybe shortest one is the actual conversation, the negotiation. This can be 1 to 3 talks, depending on your situation, depending where you're at. So this is a typical simplified timeline. And you'll see at the beginning, there's something missing. Surprise. This is what we're going to talk about today. We want to find your why. And I also put a little power pose picture here. Because supposedly in like 2018, this is what we should have all done. It's like power pose. I think it still helps. I don't know the science, but right, if we believe it helps, it helps. So this is what we want to focus on today. Why should you negotiate your salaries? And talk to others about it and be amplifiers for this. All right, So let's take a look at why. Why should you? So I think there's a non-exhaustive list of whys. Why should you talk to your colleagues, friends, everyone who will listen about salary negotiations, preferably people who need it the most, so like women and so. I chose my top 5 because these work for me. And the goal is actually, if I go one step back, if we look at this timeline, we want to find a few selected whys individually for you that will transport you through this entire timeline. Ideally, not for your research phase, but you need some, I'm going to say, endurance or so to get you all the way to the negotiation conversations. And then even further to have another negotiation 6, 12 months down the line, and then again for your next job. So ideally, we'll find some whys that are so stuck with you and that resonate. And they can change, of course, but they resonate so much with you that they won't let you go. It will keep motivating you. So this is what we're looking for, something that will transport you through the entire timeline of your negotiation process. And so I brought my top 5, and I'm going to go through with them and share why they are my top 5, and hopefully they can make your individual list. So starting at the very top, we have the buzzwords future earning potential. Sounds very fancy. It's very simple. Let's imagine you start your new job. It's almost April. You start a new job in 1.5 or 2 weeks or so. Whatever you negotiate for your starting salary in April determines the raises you will get. Because, follow me here, because as you start your job in April, 6, 12 months down the road, you negotiate your salary. You showed your impact. It's just time for salary onto the company. Whatever reason, you got that courage, you want to negotiate your salary. Usually, and I know this because I work in the people department, raises are based on a percentage of your base salary. So if you start with a high number in your base salary or your starting salary, your percentage will be a percentage of that base. So relatively speaking, the smaller or higher your income is at the very beginning, the higher or lower your raise will be. And this also is the baseline for all of your future jobs, for all the negotiations you will have in the future for jobs that you will apply. So we say, oh, okay, it's my first job. It doesn't matter that much. It does. It really does matter significantly because it determines the future earning potential. So this is reason and why, number 1. The second one is work-life balance. With a higher income, or higher compensation, we hopefully will grow our financial independence. This means that if you're lucky and privileged, you get to maybe work fewer hours and have more free time, leisure time. We love working, for sure, but it's also nice not to work. And I just recently started working part-time, so every other Friday I have off, and it's incredible. I also love my job, but I can highly recommend. My well-being has gone up significantly. But also, if you choose not to work in part-time, also fine. You have more time and money to spend for your hobbies, maybe to pay for services that make your life easier, go on more trips. I mean, we all love traveling, spend more time with your friends and family. Just your entire work-life balance and quality of life improves. Speaking from personal experience, it really does. So that's big reason number 2, that your work-life balance improves. Looking at number 3, career advancement. Personally, I think negotiating is a skill that you will need at one point in your life or the other. If this means you want to climb up the managerial ladder, if you want to be a subject matter expert, in every scenario in your career, you're going to need negotiation skills. If you want to be a people lead, you're going to have to negotiate with an employee. If you're going to be a SME or a product owner or a project manager or whatever other roles you all have, there are going to be situations where you will have to negotiate. And by practicing this skill, this negotiation skill, you show that you can do it. You build confidence, which is another why. We'll talk about that in a second. But you will open up doors that were not open or even considered open before. So it doesn't mean you have to climb up that ladder. It doesn't mean you have to be a subject matter expert. It doesn't mean you have to negotiate, but it will make more possibilities even an option than there were before because you gain that skill. outside of even salary negotiations, but for life. So that's the 3 first ones. Confidence building. Here comes another personal anecdote later, so looking forward to that. If we go back into the timeline slide for 1 second, we saw that this, where we all die inside, the time where we wait for that meeting. If you're lucky, you have the meeting within the next few days. Sometimes your manager is on a trip or they postpone the meeting, so that waiting just continues, and it's horrible. It's gut-wrenching, it's uncomfortable. This is where we practice our self-doubt the hardest and the loudest, and our biggest criticers, possibly. But I want to challenge you to sit with that fear, to really get into the uncomfortable position of waiting and trusting in the process. Because if you stick with it and come out the other side, you will feel incredible and invincible, and you will boost your confidence. And I can share a personal story here. When I finished my studies, I got to apply for my first grown-up job in a startup here in Berlin. And this was still over Zoom and stuff, not because of COVID, just because of distance. But so we had conversations, and I got an email, hey, we'd like to work with you. This is our offer. And I was like, oh man, I just read Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg, so I felt like I can do this. I have to negotiate out of principle. So I emailed them, I would be so honored to join your team, come work with you, etc. But I want this raise, or I would like to negotiate for 2K more. So now I look back and I'm like, oh, 2K. Still a lot of money, but in perspective, it's not that much. But you cannot believe, firstly, sending that email, I was so proud, so proud. And in preparation for this talk today, I looked through my WhatsApp history. I'm a little melancholic person. I looked to who I sent that notice. Oh my God, I'm so proud. I just sent someone a counter offer for my very first job. Like, I don't know how young I was, young. So that was the first motivator, first boost of confidence. But crazy shit, they actually replied and they took the offer. And I agree, it's only 2K, but you cannot believe I printed out this email. I put it in my diary of that same day. I laminated it. I am German. I laminated it. I framed it. I hung it up in my wall where I would the next few months do my exams and my master thesis and all that. And even now, when I talk about this, I'm like, oh man, I'm invincible. In that moment, I swore I'm going to run the world. I'm just going to own everything good, and just be my own person and stand up for myself and just negotiate the hell out of all of my salaries. And now this is a few years ago, and it's only 2K. Only, I say this from a very privileged perspective, but it's only 2K. But this is such a confidence boost. I don't think anything I've ever accomplished compares slightly to this. I don't know if this is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But it's just such a booster of confidence. So I can really only give you this. It's a fourth big why you should negotiate your salary. It will do tremendous things with your confidence and your posture. All right. So let's look at the very last why I brought you here today. Probably the most obvious, but equal pay. As I'm assuming most of you work or live in Germany, we had a gender pay gap of 18% in 2022, which I don't even know how to explain, but it's a fact. And I want you to remember, and I feel like this is obvious, but I also feel like it's important enough to repeat it a million times. Every time that you negotiate your salary, you're not only doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your mother, for your sister, for your daughter, for your colleague and your best friend. And every time we step up and every time we get through that uncomfortable phase of waiting for the meeting with our manager and doing the research, every time we have a chance of making that gap a little bit smaller. And this can only happen if more people and more women are brave enough to do this. So equal pay, it looks like an obvious one. I know we're all tired of hearing it because it's also demotivating, but it's not less important. And that's why it's the most important at the very end, equal pay. All right, so these are my big 5 whys that get me through all of my beloved negotiations, and that transport me through this entire process. And I know that it's very difficult to talk about money. and to talk about salary negotiations. I know we're often trained or educated or raised not to talk about money, not to make waves, not to be uncomfortable, to be glad that we have a job, to not ask for more. But I promise you that it's worth it to have that conversation with your colleague if you're in a trusted environment, kind of understand what they make if it's a comparable job. With your friends, find yourself a support group that will practice all of the negotiations you'll have and will fire you up and will cheer for you at the side of a talk that you give. But I can only encourage you to find your why that will then transport you through this entire process and this entire hopefully many negotiations that you'll have. And this is my call to action for you to look through your why and maybe be inspired by mine. All right, so a very short 10 to 12 minutes. But I hope that this ignited a little bit of that spark of excitement that will get you through all of these steps. And we are here later to network and share experiences. And maybe this is also a good chance to do so. Maybe even if it's a safer space where you don't know someone so well, but can still mingle about this and inspire each other. And then later when you're on the U-Bahn or the S-Bahn or your bike home, text your friends and try to plan when you can talk about your salaries, when you'll do your research, and when you will set that meeting with your manager, because you absolutely deserve it. We all do. And I hope that we all get the raises and the money that we deserve. Thank you. And I also have a slide with some resources in case you don't know how to Google. Thank you.
Thank you for igniting this this feeling and this emotions, because this is really very warm and touchy topic to initiate at I mean, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So how many of you are gonna, arrange a one-on-one after this talk, like negotiations I'm gonna do? Okay, so myself, Niveta. I'm working as a software engineer at Delivery Hero, just few blocks from here in a company. And then I'm also an ambassador for Women Techmakers. So this session is gonna be, hello? No? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. So yeah, this session is not going to be a Q&A, actually. You would have seen it's written like games and discussion, but like we are grown up. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and you're going to answer. And whoever's going to give a most like good answer are going to receive few swags from Google. So better be good answers. And the first question is going to be like, what's the most embarrassing situation that you have faced in a workplace? Yeah. Just to break the ice. Yeah. The answer should be the most embarrassing one. Okay. Oh, you can't hear? The question is the most embarrassing situation that you had in your workplace.
Hi there. So on my very first day of an internship, my pants ripped. And they ripped really, really badly. So I had to actually ask people if I can like hang a coat, because they ripped basically on my, my bum. So I had to ask people if they have like a jacket to cover it up and whatnot. But it was so embarrassing because I was 16 or 17. So you can imagine I was fairly young. And well, ever since I'm having a small sewing kit with me. So things like that never happen again.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, I think we have a lot. Can you just stand up?
Hi, this is Aisha. So it would be a little bit not off like workspace, but yeah, if I have a person who I like as an opposite gender in my workplace, so whenever he shows up in the meeting, and I will be seriously speaking about or giving the points there, but when he shows up or he switch on his camera, I'll be like, oh my god, 2 minutes of silence. I really admit, like, it's kind of cringy, but yeah, I just go off and he just shows up, and everybody in the team, they will be like, Aisha, next. And I was like, okay, sorry. So that kind of a distraction is like, that I feel like it's an embarrassing thing when you're a presenter over there and, you have to give the presentation and the slides you have to go through. And if you're a person whom you like, or a kind of a, if they shows up, it is like, I think many people would have this situation actually.
Yeah, me included. So, anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Cassidy. I have one, but it's more of like a work tip also. So I'm a product manager at HelloFresh, and I have an internal product, so I often interview my colleagues. And to save time, I'm doing a bunch of customer interviews this week, so with people that I work with, and I duplicated the invite. So like I invited somebody, and then like I just copied this invite so I didn't have to rewrite the description, because efficiency is important. When you do that, it also copies the Google Meet link. So I had back-to-back interviews today, and I was in an interview and I like pinged the next engineer I was talking to, hey, I'm running a couple minutes late, thinking that they would just, wait in their own Hangout. And then they just joined in the middle of my interview. And so I was like, it was so awkward because they're going to hear the same thing, but that's my hot tip for you. So it's like, it was embarrassing for me, but you can save yourselves.
One more embarrassing. Yeah. We have a lot in room, so.
So yeah, I was a PhD student in an international collaboration, and we had like our monthly collaboration with people all over the world, 50 people. And I was like presenting the little module we were working on, and I presented the progress, and of course like nobody replied. It was just like silence, and then they were like, okay, moving on. And I had to rush to another appointment, so I like logged out of the meeting, closed my computer, and one of my colleagues was in the room, and I was like saying to him, I was like, yeah, of course, like why would people care about the progress an hour? Like just like completely bitching about it. And then the boss of the collaboration was just like, you might want to mute yourself. Everyone heard it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think we all like fall into that situation. That's true. And any more embarrassing stories? Okay. Yeah, that will be the last one. We are done with this packs. So.
The second one, so I think most of us, especially the second master, so during a week, I am there. It's like that much energy. And I was feeling, and then obviously goes with other. And I think I take the whole. Yeah, and that's like my management. Fortunately,
You are so bold. Seriously, so bold. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Swag. We'll get the swag to you. Yeah, for that, for sure. And with that, we've come to the end of the icebreaker session. So we don't have any more icebreaker sessions because we are running out on time. And just one thing, just want to say is like we have been following this like for last 3 to 3 events. It's been going really well. Like I know like you all would have tagged along with a couple of people or being single. Just try to make sure that you make 2 new connections when you leave like from the networking after the dinner. So okay, not like the ones that you came with, but 2 new connections. So that works out. And with that, like we'll introduce the next speaker, who's Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So So she's Priscilla. So just to give an introduction about her. So we saw like how to do a job search, and then we saw how to negotiate. But after getting the job, how we are going to sustain the job in your probation. And apparently in EU or Germany, probation is kind of a big deal. So we have to know how to do that, right? So Priscilla, she's actually been working as a software engineer, UX designer, and then analyst. I think she has done everything. So she's a good person to know anything that you want. And thank you. Yeah. And I did pick through some of her slides. Who's like the big fan of Michael from Office? Okay, I am. So she has a lot of references from there, so it's going to be really funny. And yeah. So with that, like, yeah, I'm just going to hand over the mic to her. Welcome.
So good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Amazing. So I normally like to walk a lot, but then I need to keep coming here. So let's see. So today I'll talk about panic-proofing guide to work probation, and that's very personal. So I'm telling it's my lessons learned here. And this comes with a big disclaimer because I'm talking about something that might not apply to everyone, but I hope it resonates with most of you. So first, I just would like to understand a little bit here. How many of you came from other countries to work here in Germany? Like, there are more people? Okay, a lot of people, expats, welcome. So maybe for someone that always worked in Germany, maybe work probation is just like normal stuff, but for us coming from other countries, maybe with different ways of working, might be very scary. And that's how we landed here in this conversation. So my story started in 2014 when I came to Berlin for the first time. And I fell in love and I wanted to move here. But it took me a while, but life has their own way. And then in beginning of last year, I got a proposal from HelloFresh to come here. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. So I decided to change my whole life to come here. And I was not really prepared to that. Actually, I wasn't mentally prepared for that. And to be like 6 months probation while relocating my life. So I had to close everything I had there and bring my 2 cats with me. That's not easy too. And one thing that I want to share is that I was literally panicking. And I hope that for you, it was easier than for me. But I want to share with you here how I cope with that. So I like to think that I'm an organized person. But when I'm panicking, I don't think very well. So I was talking to my therapist, and that's my real lesson for today, do therapy. End of talk. And I was literally panicking, talking to her, and she said, get your things together. You're gonna get through that. And I said, okay, how can I really organize my mind? And okay, I have 17 years of work. I've learned a lot of frameworks, a lot of things here. And one simple thing that I hope a lot of you already know is PDCA. That's the Plan, Do, Check, Act. Is a process for continuous improvement. But I added my personal touch. That's the panic, plan, do, check, act, because I couldn't really miss the panic part. But one thing my therapist taught me is like when panic comes, just let it through. Let it flow to you. Accept that you're panicking. Like, and I know it's not easy for everyone. I also suffer from anxiety. So like, I don't want to minimize any problems around this, but panicking is part. And so the first phase here is like, okay, panicking is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do it, but it doesn't get you anywhere. That was my first lesson here. I had to panic. I had to really understand what I was going through. And then I could really put my things together. So going to the real PDCA and how I organize my lessons here to talk about you, the first thing I decided is I needed to have a plan. Once we have a plan, then you can really be panic-proof because you know where to go to. Every time your mind takes you to this dark place of insecurity, of overthinking, you say, okay, let's have a look at my plan. Let's check it out. So my lesson here, and yeah, I'm using Michael Scott in all my tips. So yes, she was right. I hope no one gets offended, but I think he's really fun. So understand expectations and be the most organized person in the room. So I hope when you're going through probation, you have a company that's very organized, that presents you to a really clear probation plan with probation goals. But if they don't present you with that, and I'm seeing some people doing this, you need to be on top of your game. You need to do your research, and you need to be the most organized person. So I know it's difficult, and I cannot go through all the tips. And again, as our friend was saying, there's a lot of research online for that. But I'm just saying, okay, make sure you sit with your manager, you work through a plan, and it's clear for everyone. That's a very important moment for you, and it's that decisive for you in your probation. And I know there are a lot of things that even if you take care through this plan, it's not enough to get you through probation, because there are a lot of things that are not in your control. Maybe it's not a good fit. Okay, it might happen. But be in control of everything you can write it down. So align expectations and be the person to ask, what do you mean by that? When they ask you to do something. Understand what's in scope and what's not in scope of your role for probation. That's very important. And we're talking about negotiation, or we're talking about speak up or voice. And one thing that's very important is understand not only your duties, but what are your rights? What are the laws that are behind the German system? There are a lot of laws, a lot of bureaucracy, but you need to understand exactly how the system works. So talk to more people around you that are going through probation. Try to understand, know your peers and how they can support you. I have a lot of supportive people to help me through this process. Like Cassidy is here, she helped me a lot through that, and also support me to do this presentation today. So I think it's very important that you understand the expectations and make notes about things that you commit with your boss. That would be very important. Make sure that's not your notes, it's a shared space for you and your boss. They need to understand that you know your game, that you know exactly what you're working through. So if you have a good plan, and I hope that's already enough for you to have a panic-proof guide to go back there and check. But PDCA has other steps here. So let's go to the do part. And that should be the easy part, right? Because it's like your day-to-day activities. That's what you really know how to do. That's do your work, right? So there is some tricks here during probation. Of course, you need to stay curious, and that's very important. You need to know everything that's happening around you. You need to understand how your company works, how the new culture that you're landing on work, because, okay, people that are coming from different countries are different cultures, different rules in place. So you want to be curious, but also stick to the plan. There are a lot of things going on, and you might be dragged to these things that are happening around you. It might be very difficult to come back to your role. So it's important to know where the information is, where all the documentation you need to know, where's the person that has this information, but you don't need to learn everything. Come back to your plan and check, is this something I really need to take care of now? Is this a project I will be delivering now? Or is this a problem for the future me to deal with? And that's also important for you to, okay, I'm learning everything I know, or no, I'm behind what I should be learning during my probation. And the last part here, that at least for me is very important, and I think in a long run it makes the difference, is the balance with your personal life. I see a lot of people during probation that they want to work more than anyone around them. And that's like exhaustive, right? There will always be another documentation for you to read. There will always be another person asking for your help. But you need to set your limits. That's very, very much important. And as a woman, we avoid that. We have really big problems with putting limits. So make sure you understand your limits, but understand what are the things you maybe can do even in your daily work that can help with your personal life, or maybe add to your probation. So networking, as we're saying, is important. Take some time to talk with your colleagues, drink a coffee with them, have lunch with them, learn from them, and bond with them. That's very important and will make the difference as well. And this takes us to the checking part. That's exactly where we evaluate what we're doing, and then we go back to our plan. So maybe it's time to cry a little bit and panic a little bit too if something went wrong. But I think the main tip here is to encourage others to give you their thoughts and listen up with an open mind. And I think in theory, it seems very easy, right? But the thing is, we're not really ready for that, to get the really horrible feedback that sometimes will come our way, to hear some bad things that we don't really agree that we did. But it's very important to collect feedback. And not only in the checking, because once again, I'm assuming that you have a great company, a great boss that schedule for you recurrent check-ins for your probation. If no one did, you again need to be proactive and make sure you're collecting feedback and you're doing check-ins. You don't want to be surprised that after 6 months, oh, by the way, no, you're not really doing what we said in our plan because you're not collecting feedback. So it's very important that you organize when you're collecting this feedback and what you do to improve this. But one thing that I learned here is that, at least in my company, my team, I work with people from all around the world, different cultures, and you need to really learn how people deal with feedback. How can you ask feedback? How people really will give you. So I'm Brazilian, and for us, we give feedback for everything, like good or bad, but we go around the bush. I don't know if there's more Brazilians here. Yeah, we go around the bush. So if I'm telling you you did something wrong, I'll first like drink a coffee with you. I like to take my time. And I know some people from some cultures I work with, they will only give me feedback if I did something wrong. There's this culture about if there's no feedback, it's good feedback. But for me as a Brazilian, it doesn't work. I want to reassure myself I'm doing a good work. I need to hear that, but not everyone is prepared. So this go back to what we're talking about, knowing your colleagues. Take some time to have coffee or lunch with them. You know, when you take some time to meet the person, like individual to individual, they will feel more comfortable to share something. So they will not wait to give you a formal feedback. They might feel comfortable after a meeting to come to you and say, hey, Priscilla, by the way, that thing we're saying doesn't really, it doesn't really matter, or you're not doing this correct. So you create this channel with people that help you. But again, it might be a bit harsh to get feedback. So it's time to act. And I don't think there's much in there, because if we did everything through here, we have a plan. We know exactly what we need to achieve, right? We're doing our work. We collected feedback. So that's the point. Again, we might cry a little bit, panic a little bit. But if we have this, we know what we need to do. We analyze the feedback. We go back to our plan and we adjust. Adjust the plan as needed and monitor our progress. So that's the time that you want to go back and sit with your boss. Try to see what are your goals there and see what you're not really doing. What kind of things you can adapt. Maybe you see you have too many goals there and you can take some down. I think that's very important as well. But I hope if you go through this plan, at least you don't get through this abyss of panicking and not knowing what to do. So I hope it's helpful for you to hear all of that. I hope it resonates something with you. And I hope that things will turn out fine for you as well as it turned out for me. I think one thing that's important is that probation is about you evaluating the company too. So make sure during this time you're really seeing if everything that you're passing, you're getting support, if you're meeting nice people, if you're doing good work, if you really want to stay there longer. Because I hope that what you're doing outside of work is what really matters for you. So like maybe you're just finding a job so you can then lay on the beach and eat your hot dogs. That I think is what we really should getting out of work, okay? So that's it that I had to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla, because nobody really talks about, probation period or the panic period. Everybody is so focused about getting the job and interview and things like that. And I think this is quite relatable, and building that foundation and starting this new career or this new job is so important. And thank you for talking about it. And this is a small thank you from, thank you, Princeton. All right. So, wow, it's been an amazing evening with a lot of learning and a lot of inspiration. And I think most of the talks were like very really relatable, at least to me. And of course, we are not at the end. And I would like to introduce our last speaker for the day. That's Surya Shanti. She's a professional with a wealth of experience in marketing, project management, product management, and having worked in several countries and companies like Nokia and IBM. So in her talk, Surya addresses the ongoing misconception that now it's better. She addresses the ongoing misconception that open source is not a space for women, and outline how individuals can get started in open source, build their skill set, and find their community to expand their employability. So please welcome our last speaker for the day, Surya Shanti.
Right. Hello, everyone. Very nice to meet you. I will try to stick to the time because I know it's a bit late. We all want to go home. We all want to have some dinner. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself and what qualifies me to do this. So I have worked in, open source projects over the past few years. And recently, I have been privileged enough to take a career sabbatical so that I can focus more on working with open source communities. And currently, I'm working as a program manager for an open source project that is part of the Linux Foundation. I live in Berlin. I have been living in Berlin for more than 10 years. So if you have any questions about Berlin, feel free to ask me. I have a daughter and I have 2 cats. I'm a proud crazy cat lady. So you will see pictures of cats on the slides. So just a warning. So the first question is, why open source? Why should you, as a coder or as somebody who is in product or marketing or analytics or data, why should you care about open source? So the biggest thing is, usually we hear all the horror stories about wider tech spaces, that there are very few women there, and sometimes it can be extremely misogynistic, or it can be very closed off to people who are part of LGBTQA. Generally, open source communities are open and friendly and more welcoming of diversity and inclusion. And secondly, these communities are usually managed and grown virtually. So you would be able to make friendships and connections with people from all parts of the world. You would be collaborating with somebody who is in Asia or in the US. And if you're someone who is just starting out your career, or even if you're somebody who is looking to understand more about what's out there to grow your career to the next steps, this is a very good way for you to meet people from different organizations and also build connections with them that will help you grow. And of course, the barriers to entry, it's very low. What is most needed is a willingness to contribute, is a willingness to participate. So let's just look at what is open source, right? So essentially, open source is also sometimes referred to as free software. What that means is, it is essentially code that you can inspect, modify, and enhance. It doesn't necessarily always mean free to use, but it essentially means it's free for you to build on top of. So why should we care, right? Because open source is now something that more and more the European Union is interested in bringing into its government. They are having more and more opportunities, grants, scholarships for people who are interested in open source. They want to, City of Berlin, City of Munich, they are looking to bring in open source into running of these cities. And more importantly, there is a growing market out there for open source related services. And it's expected to grow up to 71.5 billion by end of this decade. So if you're looking to grow your job, then yes, this is definitely an industry, or this is definitely a sector that you should be interested in. And also, how many of you here have a smartphone? Yeah, because if you have a smartphone, your phone is run using open source. It doesn't matter if it is an Android or it doesn't matter if it is an Apple. Your car, often the cars that you drive, the trams that you get in on, these are the software that they have. They are built on top of open source. So this is not necessarily something, this is not something that is a fad. This is not something like an NFT or crypto that is here today, gone tomorrow. This is a field that is growing regularly and which will still be here in 10 years' time, 15 years' time. So there are different types of open source projects. And not everything is useful for us if we are completely new to open source and like the title of my talk says, just dipping our toes into open source. So the solo projects, which are essentially about 1 or 2 developers working together, collaborating, or there are corporate projects which are run by a private company, but still people from the external wider open source community can still participate. Or it could be a monarchist setup or a cathedral setup where, you know, there's somebody big at the top and all the decisions are made by them. And then there are some lieutenants who go and execute. So there's not much collaboration there. But something that's interesting for someone who is interested to know about open source and want to be a part of that community is, of course, the community setup where a lot of contributors run the project. It is very egalitarian, very democratically run. And then you also have the foundations, the Eclipse Foundation, the Linux Foundation, the Apache Foundation, where they are incorporated with officers and directors and all decision making is normalized. So why is community and foundation the best open source projects for beginners? Because first of all, they have defined ways of working. As women, unfortunately, most of us have been in situations where you think the work culture is great or the company has a good name and then you go and work there. And oftentimes you are the only woman in the room or you are the only person of color in the room. Or surprise, surprise, you're the only woman and person of color in the room. 2 for the price of 1, right? So these, open source communities and open source foundations, the projects that are part of them, they usually have a very defined ways of working that they are pretty evangelistic about. And they also have events. They have in-person events, conferences, community days, meetups, or online events like recurring calls, which you can, as a newcomer, just go and participate in. So that would also give you an idea of how the community is. You can see them right in front of your eyes in action and see whether all the great things that they claim in their ways of working or code of conduct documents are actually followed in person. And these communities usually have a community manager or a dedicated Slack channel or 1 or 2 dedicated people that anybody new who is interested in joining this community can reach out to. So if you are new, if you're interested in participating in them, these are some of the doorways that you can utilize. So the next question, yes, how do you get started? So first of all, you need to look into your area of interest. It can be related to your work. It can be related to a professional skill that you want to develop. It could be your hobby, or it could be your curiosity. So for example, if you're hearing about green computing for the first time, like Doreen said, they also have open source projects around that. So that could be something that you can contribute on. So essentially, you Google it. I'm not going to read out my slides fully. You can, it will be shared with you later, so you can read that. Essentially, you Google it, basically look for that in GitHub, and you will get a list of different projects that are available in GitHub. And now what you need to do is to go to GitHub and check for their community health. Are there enough people contributing to the project every so often, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis? Because as a beginner, you don't want to get into a project where, yes, there are 500 people who are part of the community, but nobody has contributed anything for the past 2 months, 3 months. You don't want to be the only active person in the room. And another thing that you can do is to also look at the contributors. Who are the contributors? Is there enough diversity? So to be perfectly honest with you, oftentimes these groups are a bunch of white men sitting together and coding. You would probably be the only person of color or only woman in the room. But that is usually fine. That is not usually a red flag. What is important is also what are their community standards? What is their ways of working? How do they share information between the different organizations? How do they attribute credit? So look for those. And okay, so you did your first round of your Google Foo, and you are still interested, you're still curious about a specific project. What to do next? You have to talk to people. So good communities, especially communities who want to welcome new people in, they will define ways in which a newcomer can reach out to them, and will have it on their GitHub pages. And make it clear that you are new to open source, but you're interested in the project. And then ask your questions to whoever they have assigned, or if they don't have a specific person, but a Slack channel, jump in and ask your questions. And like I said earlier, lack of diversity is not necessarily a red flag. But if you see that the project doesn't have much diversity, go prepared. Have a list of questions, and don't be afraid to ask them the hard-hitting questions about their lack of diversity. And usually, by how they answer, you can understand whether this is a community that you want to join or not. The good communities understand their lack of diversity, and they want to be diverse, and they offer opportunities for people from different paths of life to join their community. But if they are being very angry, or if they are being very defensive, then probably that's not a community for you. So one thing to keep in mind when joining an open source community is that this is not a corporate job interview, right? So they do not care about your background. They don't care about your race, your gender, the company that you work for, or where you're from. All they care about is how much are you willing to contribute to the community. And again, respect is earned based on the work that you do. Oftentimes in some communities, you would see people coming in from brand name companies and say that I'm from this specific company. These are my list of features. Make it happen. It's not going to happen like that. If you want to make something happen, you have to do it to make it happen. And again, when you're reaching out to people, make sure you follow their code of conduct. And it is definitely better to under-promise and over-deliver when you're part of an open source community, because oftentimes everybody understands that we all have work, we all have a family life, we all have our other hobbies, our travel. So people understand that people get busy. So they don't expect you to respond back to them within 24 hours. So how to interact with the community? So the biggest takeaway is be curious and not judgmental, right? So when in doubt, assume good intentions and ask other people within the community that you trust. Because again, these conversations are happening online. Text does not convey sarcasm. Text does not convey tone. So if you are having a conversation with someone and if you feel like they are not being respectful to you, ask them to clarify. Assume good intentions. And if they aren't taking their time to come up with a clarification, ask other people who have been in the community. And open source is basically run on criticism. People criticize each other's code. They do code reviews. You are expected to review each other's work, and others are expected to review and critique your work. But the criticism should be limited to approach and code, and also even could be also to behavior, but not about criticizing people personally. And respect people's time. You should ask questions, but be patient, because like I said earlier, everybody have 100 other responsibilities outside of this, and most people are doing this work for free. Also, keep in mind of language and cultural barriers, so that especially when you're interacting with people who are from a different time zone. Also, two things, right? The last two things. It can be very overwhelming when you are part of a community. There would be a lot of conversations coming in. There could be a lot of opportunities. So make sure you know your limits. And if it is getting too much, feel free to step back. Feel free to tell them, this is too much, or it is getting too hectic for me, so I need to take a step back. I will maybe come back in 3 months or 6 months. And take your time and step back, and that's okay. And finally, don't be a manager who just come in, make hundreds of suggestions, and not really execute on anything. Go in and execute. If you think their documentation is not really there, if you think how their information on how new people can get started is not well set up, raise your hand and say, hey guys, how about this? This is something that I can do, and step up and do it. So, $1 million question, right? I don't code. How is this relevant to me? So, yes, you don't need to code, guys, but we can do this. So those who code, they can fix bugs, they can do documentation, they can add features to the code, they can do code review. But those of us who are non-coders, we can do a lot of things as part of open source communities. We can do community management, we can do marketing, we can do project and program management, documentation, analytics, event management, translation, because there are about 10 million active open source projects going on in the world now. And they all want to scale. You can only work as a startup with 5 of your friends for so long. If you want to scale, you need all of these skills, from community management to marketing to project management. And this is where the people who are not coders can really bring in their value. So here are some recommendations, some links for you to get started to good open source communities, YouTube channels, and also the key open source foundations. So hopefully, I think this has given you somewhat of an overview on how you can get started on open source. Even if you're in marketing, even if you're in product, this is definitely something that you should at least look into to see if you would be interested in being more a part of. So yeah, go forth and conquer, dare to be, right? That's it. That's
Thank you so much, Surya. So I've been one of the person like who's really scared about open source, but now like I can see I can do some contribution. Thank you so much, and big round of applause for her. And thank you. I invite Kola to give a thank you note. She's been working really hard like for this event, so she deserves a special mention.
Actually, all of us worked so hard to be here today, especially the volunteers, Nivata and Nishta. They worked, I'm sorry. The volunteers, Nishta and Simran, they worked so hard for this event to be holding today. We really appreciate them. So thank you so much, everyone. At the beginning, we asked that how will you dare to be? I hope by now you know how to dare to, what do you want to dare? I think I would like to ask for a salary raise. Courtesy of Francisca. And I think I would, okay, you said you prefer Francie, right? Okay. I'll start doing open source as well. I hope we took notes and we learned a lot from all the speakers. All those talks will be recorded on our YouTube page. You can please follow us on subscribe. Sorry, not follow. I'm sorry. Our YouTube page is Women Techmakers Berlin. We have the Linktree link. So what you can do if you want to see get all our information is to go to Linktree and search for WTM Berlin. Then you will see all our links. You can join. You should actually join us on Slack. We have a Slack community where we have amazing women and men. So not just women, we have men that support women in tech. So you should actually join us on Slack. We have a Twitter page as well. I hope you were tweeting about the event. I don't know. I was doing that. I hope every other person was doing the same thing. So I appreciate our speakers. And also, we would have this event uploaded on YouTube. So you could go back and watch, because I know maybe you were distracted at a point and you want to get some information. Thank you so much. The next thing now will be the one we've all been waiting for. Well, I've been waiting for it. I don't know if everyone has been. You've been waiting for it as well. So we have dinner and networking. And one challenge I want to give each and everybody is to make sure, is actually a task. Make sure you meet at least one person during the networking, and make sure you exchange LinkedIn profiles or any networking profile you prefer, medium you prefer, and make sure you check up on them after today. Especially if you're here, you are trying to get a job, because what happens most time is we get jobs through networking. 90% of the time. Maybe, I don't have the statistics, but maybe 70% of the time. Because before the job gets on Google, on the career page, the company would already ask internal people to refer people and recommend people. So please meet up with people today and network with them. What else? Okay, the thing we're going to do now before the dinner is we have an amazing photographer. Her name is Ofek. Oh, she's here. Yeah, we appreciate her. And we also would like to say thank you to Katia, our Google representative, she made all of this possible. I mean, she's here after work and she did all of this for us. We are so grateful. And we'd like to appreciate all the Google Women Techmaker Berlin organizers, coordinators that I mentioned before, and each and every one of you present here. We are so grateful that you came. Before dinner, we want to take a group picture. So everybody will go right to my right-hand side where we have that colorful Google picture. Google, what's that thing called? Google image. I don't know if it's called image, sorry. So we would, logo, thank you. We would all go there and take a picture, and then from there we would do dinner. Okay. Yeah.
Hey. So I think it's better if people will stand in the top stair. and then the other seat, and then we maximize the space.